At my wedding, my mom grabbed the microphone and called me a fraud. She told everyone I'd tricked my husband into marrying me. The entire room went silent. Then my husband stepped forward and raised his phone. What he played changed everything. "Hello everyone, my name is Madison Carter. I'm 31 years old, and 10 minutes after I married the love of my life, my mother stood in front of 200 wedding guests, took the microphone from the DJ, and announced that I'd lied to my husband about who I really was." The room went silent. Glasses stopped halfway to people's lips. Forks froze in midair. Even the band stopped playing. For one terrifying second, I thought she was actually going to destroy my marriage. The strange part, my husband didn't look surprised. He looked calm, as if he'd been expecting something like this all along. If you'd met my mother before that day, you probably would have described her as charming. She volunteered at church, remembered everyone's birthdays, never forgot to send thank you cards. People constantly told me how lucky I was to have such a caring mother. They only knew the version she showed the world. At home, everything was different. Nothing was ever good enough. If I earned an A, she'd ask why it wasn't an A+. If I received a promotion at work, she'd remind me that someone else probably got promoted faster. Every achievement somehow became another reason I should have done better. My younger sister, Brianna, learned very early that agreeing with mom made life easier. She laughed at mom's jokes, repeated her opinions. Eventually, the two of them became almost impossible to separate. I wasn't the rebellious daughter. I wasn't reckless. I simply stopped trying to win competitions I could never win. After college, I became an interior designer. I loved transforming empty spaces into places where families could build memories. It wasn't glamorous, but it made me happy. Mom never understood. "When are you going to get a real career?" "This is a real career. You decorate pillows. I design commercial spaces." She'd simply wave her hand. Same thing. Eventually, I stopped defending myself. 3 years ago, I met Ethan. We were both trapped in an airport after our flight was delayed because of a snowstorm. The coffee shop was overcrowded. Every seat was taken, except one, right beside mine. He smiled. "Mind if I sit here?" "Go ahead." What was supposed to be a 40-minute delay turned into 6 hours. We talked the entire time. Books, travel, childhood memories, favorite foods. The conversation never felt forced. When boarding finally started, he looked at me and laughed. "I almost don't want this flight to leave." Neither did I. Our first date happened a week later. By the third date, I told him something I'd never told anyone I dated before. "My family is complicated." He smiled gently. "Mine too." "No, you don't understand. I've spent years feeling like I have to earn my mother's approval." "You don't." "I know, but knowing something and believing it aren't always the same." He reached across the table. "Then let's make one promise." "What?" "No secrets. No pretending. If we're going to build a life together, it starts with honesty." I squeezed his hand. "Deal." And that's exactly what we did. Over the next 3 years, Ethan learned everything. He knew about my anxiety, the therapy I'd attended after years of emotional criticism, the mistakes I'd made in my early 20s, the credit card debt I'd worked hard to pay off, the panic attacks I'd experienced during one particularly difficult period of my life. Nothing was hidden, not because he demanded explanations, because he made me feel safe enough to tell the truth. When he proposed, I cried before he even finished asking. Not because of the ring, because for the first time in my life, I felt completely accepted. Mom acted thrilled. She insisted on helping with wedding planning, dress shopping, flowers, the guest list. For a while, I actually believed things were getting better. Then little cracks began appearing. She repeatedly asked strange questions. "Does Ethan know everything about you?" "Yes." "Everything?" "Yes." She'd smile oddly. "I hope so." I never understood what she meant. Brianna became obsessed with filming everything. Cake tastings, dress fittings, bridal showers, memories, she always said. Even Ethan joked one day, "I think your sister has spent more time recording this wedding than enjoying it." The week before the ceremony, Mom invited me over for tea. She looked unusually serious. "Marriage is built on honesty." "I agree. I just hope you've been honest enough." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" She smiled. "Oh, nothing," then changed the subject. Driving home that afternoon, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I told Ethan about it. He listened carefully, then quietly asked, "If something happens at the wedding, what do you mean?" "Your mother has been acting strangely." I laughed nervously. She wouldn't ruin her own daughter's wedding. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a small envelope, and handed it to me. "What's this?" "Insurance." I looked confused. "I don't understand." You don't need to. Not unless something happens. I stared at the envelope. What's inside? He smiled. Hopefully, something we'll never need. I trusted him enough not to ask again. Our wedding day arrived with perfect weather. Blue skies, soft spring air, everything looked exactly the way we'd imagined. The ceremony itself was beautiful. I walked down the aisle with my grandfather, because my father had passed away years earlier. Ethan cried when he saw me. I cried when we exchanged our vows. For those 20 minutes, nothing else in the world existed. We were married. The reception began with dinner, then speeches. Ethan's best man spoke. My maid of honor made everyone laugh. The atmosphere was warm, relaxed, happy. Then, without warning, my mother stood up, walked directly to the DJ, and took the microphone. At first, everyone smiled. They assumed another toast was coming. She looked directly at Ethan, then at every guest in the ballroom. My new son-in-law deserves to know the truth. Every conversation stopped. I slowly stood. Mom, she ignored me. Then she pointed directly at me. My daughter lied to this man about who she really is. The room became so quiet, I could hear someone set down a wine glass. Mom's voice grew louder. Everything she told him was a lie. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Brianna pull out her phone and begin recording. I couldn't breathe. I looked at Ethan, waiting, praying, begging him with my eyes to believe me. Instead of looking at me, he calmly stood, walked toward my mother, gently took the microphone from her hands, then turned to face all 200 guests. He smiled politely and said one sentence. Before anyone believes that, there's something all of you should know. The entire ballroom held its breath. Sometimes, the people trying hardest to expose your secrets forget one important thing. The person standing beside you may already know every single one of them. As Ethan held the microphone, everyone expected him to question his new wife. Instead, he looked directly at my family. Ethan stood in the center of the ballroom. The microphone rested calmly in his hand. No anger, no panic, just quiet confidence. He looked at my mother, then at the guests. I've listened carefully to what my mother-in-law just said. He smiled politely, and she's right about one thing. Every person in the room leaned forward. There are things Madison told me before we got married. My heart pounded. He turned toward me. I know about the anxiety she struggled with after years of constant criticism. I know about the credit card debt she worked overtime to pay off before we got engaged. I know about every mistake she made in her 20s. I know about every therapy appointment. I know about every night she cried because she believed she'd never be good enough. He looked back at the guests. She told me every one of those things herself. The room remained completely silent. So if that's what you meant by lies, I'm afraid you're several years too late. Mom's confident smile disappeared. That's not what I meant. Ethan nodded. I thought it might not be. He reached into his suit pocket, then pulled out the small envelope he'd shown me a week earlier, the one he'd called insurance. He opened it. Inside were several folded sheets of paper. I hoped I'd never need these. He unfolded the first page. About 3 weeks ago, my mother-in-law called me. Mom's eyes widened. He continued. She asked if we could meet privately. The room became even quieter. I agreed. He held up the papers. I made notes immediately afterward because the conversation disturbed me. Mom took one nervous step forward. Ethan, please. He looked at her kindly. You told me Madison wasn't mentally stable. You said she'd manipulated therapists into believing you were controlling. You said she'd hidden her financial history. You told me she was pretending to be someone she wasn't. Every word echoed through the ballroom. My sister slowly lowered her phone. Ethan continued calmly. I thanked you for your concern. Then I went home and asked my fiancé if there was anything in her past she hadn't told me. I felt tears forming. He smiled at me. She looked me in the eyes and answered every question honestly. He turned back toward the guests. That's when I realized something. The only person trying to deceive me, why wasn't standing beside me? He gently handed the microphone toward my mother. If I've said anything inaccurate, Sas, please correct me. She couldn't. She simply stared at the floor. Brianna suddenly spoke. Mom, what did you do? Mom looked at her helplessly. I was trying to protect him. Ethan answered softly. From what? She had no response. Just silence. My grandfather slowly stood. He looked directly at my mother. Is what Ethan said true? Tears rolled down her face. Yes. Gasps spread across the ballroom. Several relatives looked at each other in disbelief. One of my aunts quietly whispered, Oh my God. Ethan wasn't finished. He looked toward Brianna. I also know why you've been recording everything today. She froze. What? Your mother told you there might be a dramatic scene, so you wanted to capture it. Brianna's face turned pale. I I thought Madison was hiding something. I looked at my sister. You never asked me. She lowered her phone completely. No, I didn't. She started crying. I'm sorry. I believed she regretted recording. Whether she regretted everything else, I wasn't sure. Mom suddenly stepped toward me. I only wanted you to have a perfect marriage. I quietly asked, by destroying it before it even began. She couldn't answer. Dad's older brother slowly stood from his table. He looked at my mother. I've known Madison since the day she was born. I've never once heard her lie to anyone. He turned toward Ethan. I'm glad you believed the right person. Several guests quietly applauded, not loudly, just enough to break the unbearable silence. Ethan gently took my hand, then looked around the ballroom. I'd like everyone to know something. My wife isn't perfect, neither am I. But our marriage began exactly the way every marriage should. With honesty. He smiled, and no speech can take that away. He handed the microphone back to the DJ, then looked at me. Dance with me? I laughed through tears. Right now, especially right now, the band quietly began playing again. We stepped onto the dance floor. For a moment, no one else moved. Then my grandfather joined us with my grandmother. Soon, other couples followed. The reception slowly came back to life. My mother quietly left the ballroom before dessert. Brianna followed several minutes later. Neither of them made another scene. Epilogue, soft piano becomes lighter, carrying peace instead of fear. It's been 3 years since our wedding. That video Brianna recorded was never posted anywhere. She deleted it that night. Months later, she visited our home alone. No camera, no excuses, just an apology. She admitted she'd spent years believing whatever Mom told her, because it was easier than questioning it. Rebuilding our relationship took time, but she kept showing up, one honest conversation at a time. My mother also apologized, not once, many times. The first apology didn't repair the damage, neither did the second. But over the years, her actions slowly began matching her words. She started therapy. She learned that trying to control someone's life isn't the same as loving them. Our relationship isn't what it once was. In some ways, it's healthier, because it's finally built on truth instead of fear. As for Ethan, every anniversary, he gives the same toast. He raises his glass, smiles at me, and says, I'm still grateful you told me the truth before we were married. Everyone laughs, because now they understand what he really means. My thoughts. Looking back, the most important moment of my wedding wasn't when my mother took the microphone. It was when my husband did. Trust isn't built because two people have perfect pasts. It's built because neither person is afraid to tell the truth. My mother thought secrets would destroy our marriage. She never realized there weren't any secrets left to expose. When you build a relationship on honesty, accusations lose their power. That day, I didn't learn whether my husband trusted me. I'd known that for years. What I learned was something even more valuable. The strongest marriages aren't the ones that never face public storms. They're the ones where both people choose to stand on the same side when the storm finally arrives.